An elderly black man named Charles Thompson is peacefully sitting in a park when a young officer named Daniels begins to harass him, accusing him of not belonging there. But just as the situation escalates, someone unexpected steps in, and what happens next leaves the entire police force stunned. Who is this mystery figure, and how did they change everything in an instant? Let's find out. But before we get into the story, comment below where you're watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The sun crept over the horizon, casting a warm glow across Oakwood Park. The morning air was crisp and clean, filled with the gentle chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves in the breeze. As the first rays of sunlight touched the well-maintained paths and neatly trimmed hedges, the park came to life with a serene beauty that seemed almost magical. Amidst this tranquil scene sat Mr. Charles Thompson, an elderly black man in his late 70s, perched comfortably on his favorite bench. His weathered hands grasped a steaming cup of coffee, the aroma mingling with the fresh scent of morning dew. Beside him lay a wooden cane, its handle worn smooth from years of use. Mr. Thompson's eyes crinkled at the corners as he took a sip of his coffee, savoring the rich flavor. He set the cup down and picked up his folded newspaper, carefully spreading it open across his lap. This daily ritual was more than just a habit. It was a moment of peace, a chance to reflect on life and enjoy the simple pleasures that came with age. As he began to read, the sunlight caught the silver in his close-cropped hair, giving him an almost ethereal appearance. His attire was modest but neat, a clean, pressed shirt tucked into well-worn slacks, and a light jacket to ward off the morning chill. Despite his advanced years, there was a dignity in his posture, a quiet strength that spoke of a life well lived. Just a few benches away, partially obscured by a flowering dogwood tree, sat another man. To the casual observer, he might have seemed like just another early riser enjoying the park. But there was an intensity to his stillness, a purpose in the way he sat motionless, taking in every detail of the scene before him. He was more than just a bystander. He was a silent witness to the unfolding morning. As Mr. Thompson turned the pages of his newspaper, occasionally pausing to sip his coffee or glance at the blooming flowers nearby, the quiet observer remained vigilant. His presence added an undercurrent of tension to the otherwise peaceful setting, like the calm before a storm. The morning wore on, and the park began to fill with the usual crowd of joggers, dog walkers, and parents pushing strollers. Mr. Thompson nodded politely to those he recognized, exchanging brief pleasantries with a few regulars who passed by his bench. His kind smile and gentle demeanor made him a beloved fixture in the park, as familiar and comforting as the old oak trees that lined the pathways. It was nearly 9 o'clock when the peaceful atmosphere was shattered by the arrival of Officer Daniels. The young policeman strode into the park with an air of authority, his uniform crisp and his badge gleaming in the morning sun. His eyes scanned the area, eventually settling on Mr. Thompson with a look of suspicion. Without hesitation, Officer Daniels marched directly toward the elderly man, his hand resting casually on his holster. As he approached, Mr. Thompson looked up from his newspaper, his expression a mixture of curiosity and mild concern. "Excuse me, sir," the officer called out, his voice sharp and authoritative. "What are you doing here?" Mr. Thompson blinked in surprise, lowering his newspaper. "Good morning, officer," he replied calmly. "I'm just enjoying my coffee and reading the paper, as I do every morning." The officer, whose name tag read Daniels, narrowed his eyes. "This is a residential area. Do you live around here?" Mr. Thompson nodded, a small furrow appearing between his brows. "Yes, I've lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years, just a few blocks down on Maple Street." Officer Daniels crossed his arms, his posture becoming more aggressive. "I haven't seen you around before. Can you prove you live here?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Mr. Thompson felt a familiar tightness in his chest, one that had nothing to do with his heart condition. He took a deep breath, willing himself to remain calm. "Officer," he began, his voice steady, "I've been coming to this park every morning for decades. I'm not sure what proof you're looking for, but I assure you, I belong here." Daniel scoffed, his lips curling into a sneer. "Listen, old man, I don't have time for this. This park isn't for loitering. If you can't prove you live here, you need to leave. Mr. Thompson felt a flicker of anger, quickly tempered by years of experience dealing with such situations. He carefully folded his newspaper and set it aside, then looked directly into the young officer's eyes. "Son," he said, his voice carrying the weight of his years, "I understand you're doing your job, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not loitering. I'm a resident enjoying a public space, just like anyone else." Officer Daniels' face flushed red. He took a step closer, looming over Mr. Thompson. "I'm not your son," he spat, "and I'm telling you to move along. Now!" Mr. Thompson's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his cane. He hadn't wanted to use it today, but the stress of the confrontation was taking its toll. "Officer Daniels," he said, reading the name tag again, "I'd like to speak with your supervisor. I believe this situation warrants." "Shut up," Daniels barked, cutting him off. "You don't make demands here. I'm the one giving orders. Get up and leave, or I'll arrest you for trespassing and resisting an officer." The threat hung in the air, cold and harsh. Mr. Thompson felt his heart racing, the familiar tightness in his chest intensifying. He gripped his cane, using it to slowly push himself to his feet. "There's no need for threats, officer," Mr. Thompson said, his voice strained but dignified. "I've done nothing wrong. I've lived in this community longer than you've been alive. I helped design this very park." Daniel sneered, clearly not believing a word. "Yeah, right? And I'm the mayor. Last warning, old man. Move it, or you're coming with me." Mr. Thompson stood his ground, years of fighting for his rights giving him strength. "I will not be bullied out of a public space, officer. If you insist on this course of action, I must insist on speaking with your superior." Officer Daniels' face contorted with anger. In a swift motion, he grabbed Mr. Thompson's arm, yanking him forward. "That's it. You're under arrest." The sudden movement sent a jolt of pain through Mr. Thompson's shoulder. He gasped, his cane clattering to the ground as he struggled to keep his balance. "Please," Mr. Thompson wheezed, the stress aggravating his heart condition. "There's no need for this. I'm not resisting." As the confrontation between Officer Daniels and Mr. Thompson unfolded, a figure sat motionless on a nearby bench, his presence almost forgotten in the tension of the moment. The man, dressed in casual clothes that blended seamlessly with the park's other visitors, had been there since before Mr. Thompson arrived for his morning ritual. His eyes, sharp and attentive, never left the scene playing out before him. To a casual observer, he might have appeared to be simply enjoying the morning air, perhaps reading a book or scrolling through his phone. But his focus was entirely on the interaction between the elderly black man and the young police officer. The mystery man's face remained impassive, betraying no emotion as he watched Officer Daniels approach Mr. Thompson. His fingers, interlaced in his lap, tightened almost imperceptibly as the officer's tone grew more aggressive. As Daniels demanded proof of residency from Mr. Thompson, the observer's eyebrow twitched, the only outward sign of his inner thoughts. He leaned forward slightly, his ears straining to catch every word of the exchange. Mr. Thompson's calm demeanor in the face of the officer's hostility seemed to intrigue the watcher. A flicker of something, respect, perhaps, crossed his face as the elderly man stood his ground, explaining his long history in the neighborhood. The observer's gaze shifted between Mr. Thompson and Officer Daniels, taking in every detail. He noted the way Daniels' hand kept drifting towards his holster, the aggressive set of his shoulders. In contrast, he observed Mr. Thompson's dignified posture, the slight tremor in his hand as he gripped his cane. As the confrontation escalated, the mystery man's body tensed, as if preparing to intervene. But he remained seated, his face a mask of concentration. He seemed to be weighing each word, each action, filing away information for some unknown purpose. When Officer Daniels grabbed Mr. Thompson's arm, the observer's eyes narrowed. His hand twitched, as if wanting to reach out and stop the officer. But still, he didn't move from his bench. The man watched as Mr. Thompson began to visibly shake, his face contorting with stress and pain. The observer's jaw clenched, a muscle working in his cheek as he fought to maintain his neutral expression. As Officer Daniels reached for his handcuffs, the mystery man finally stirred. In one fluid motion, he stood up from the bench, his movements deliberate and controlled. Officer Daniels was becoming increasingly agitated. His grip on Mr. Thompson's arm tightened, causing the elderly man to wince in pain. "I've had enough of your excuses," Daniels growled, his face inches from Mr. Thompson's. "You're coming with me now?" Mr. Thompson's breath came in short, ragged gasps. The stress of the situation was clearly taking its toll on his health. "Please," he wheezed, "I have a heart condition. I need to sit down." But Officer Daniels was beyond listening. He roughly spun Mr. Thompson around, pressing him against the back of the bench. The elderly man's newspaper fell to the ground, pages scattering in the morning breeze. "Hands behind your back," Daniels barked, reaching for his handcuffs. Mr. Thompson's legs buckled, and he sagged against the bench. "I can't breathe," he gasped, his face pale and clammy. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Officer Daniels' face, but it was quickly replaced by a stubborn determination. "Stop resisting," he insisted, though Mr. Thompson was clearly not fighting back. As Daniels fumbled with his handcuffs, a commanding voice rang out across the park. "Stop!" Both Mr. Thompson and Officer Daniels froze, turning towards the source of the interruption. A tall, imposing figure strode towards them, his face a mask of controlled anger. Officer Daniels' eyes widened in recognition and fear. His grip on Mr. Thompson loosened as he stammered. "Chief Mitchell." I didn't expect to see you here, sir." Chief Raymond Mitchell, a black man in his late 50s with salt and pepper hair and a stern expression, came to a stop in front of them. His eyes flicked between the young officer and Mr. Thompson, taking in the scene with a practiced gaze. "Release him. Now," Chief Mitchell ordered, his voice leaving no room for argument. Officer Daniels immediately let go of Mr. Thompson, taking a step back. The elderly man swayed slightly, and Chief Mitchell quickly moved to support him. "Are you all right, Mr. Thompson?" the chief asked, his voice softening with concern. Mr. Thompson nodded, though his breathing was still labored. "I'll be fine, Raymond," he said, recognizing the chief. "Just give me a moment." Chief Mitchell turned to Officer Daniels, his expression hardening. "Explain yourself, officer. Why are you harassing a respected member of our community?" Daniels shifted uncomfortably, his earlier bravado evaporating under the chief's stern gaze. I was investigating a potential loitering situation, sir. The suspect couldn't provide proof of residence, and—" "Suspect." Chief Mitchell interrupted, his voice sharp. "Mr. Charles Thompson is not a suspect. He's a pillar of this community, a man who has lived here for decades and contributed more to this neighborhood than you could imagine." Daniel's face paled as the magnitude of his mistake began to dawn on him. I didn't know, sir." "He couldn't prove." "He shouldn't have to prove anything," Chief Mitchell cut in. "This is a public park, Officer Daniels. Mr. Thompson has every right to be here, as does any other citizen. Your job is to protect and serve, not to harass and intimidate." The chief's words hung in the air, heavy with disappointment and anger. Mr. Thompson, having caught his breath, spoke up. "Chief Mitchell," he said, his voice tired but firm, "I appreciate your intervention, but I have to ask, why were you here to witness this?" A small smile tugged at the corner of Chief Mitchell's mouth. "I've been walking the beat, so to speak, observing our officers in action, getting a feel for how they interact with the community. It seems I chose the right day to visit this park." He turned back to Officer Daniels, who looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. "Report back to the station immediately. We'll discuss this incident and your future with the force in my office." As Daniels slunk away, Chief Mitchell gently guided Mr. Thompson back to his bench. "I'm so sorry you had to experience this, Mr. Thompson. This is exactly the kind of behavior I'm working to eliminate from our force." Mr. Thompson sighed, settling back onto the bench. "It's a familiar story, Raymond, one I had hoped wouldn't need telling anymore." Chief Mitchell nodded solemnly. "We've made progress, but clearly not enough. But I promise you, Mr. Thompson, this incident won't be swept under the rug. Officer Daniels will face consequences, and we'll use this as a teaching moment for the entire force." Mr. Thompson looked up at the chief, seeing not just the powerful law enforcement officer, but the young boy he'd known years ago. "You're doing good work, Raymond. Your father would be proud. A shadow of emotion passed over Chief Mitchell's face. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. That means a lot coming from you. He paused, then asked, would you be willing to come down to the station later this week? I'd like you to share your experience with our officers. It could be a powerful lesson. Mr. Thompson considered for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I think I can do that. It's important that they understand, that they see us as people, not just as... He trailed off, gesturing vaguely. Chief Mitchell squeezed his shoulder gently. Exactly. Your voice, your experience, it matters. It can make a difference. As Mr. Thompson sat there, his breath slowly steadying, his mind drifted back through the years. The park that had just been the site of such a distressing confrontation faded away, replaced by vivid memories of a lifetime spent fighting for justice and building community. Charles Thompson had been born in 1940 in a small house just a few blocks from where Oakwood Park now stood. In those days, the neighborhood had been a patchwork of vacant lots and rundown buildings, a far cry from the well-manicured lawns and tidy homes that now lined the streets. Young Charles had grown up in the shadow of segregation, experiencing firsthand the sting of discrimination and the weight of unequal treatment. But rather than crush his spirit, these experiences had fueled a burning desire for change. As a teenager in the mid-1950s, Charles had attended his first civil rights meeting. The memory was still vivid in his mind. The church basement was packed, the air thick with cigarette smoke and tension. Charles, just 15, squeezed into a seat at the back, his heart pounding with excitement and fear. At the front, a man with a booming voice was speaking. We cannot wait for change to come to us, the speaker declared. We must be the change we wish to see in our community. Charles felt something stir within him. He looked around at the faces in the crowd, determined, hopeful, afraid, and knew that he had found his purpose. From that moment on, Charles had thrown himself into the civil rights movement. He attended every meeting he could, soaking up knowledge and strategies. He participated in sit-ins at segregated lunch counters, his hands shaking but his resolve firm as he endured taunts and threats from angry white patrons. One memory in particular stood out. It was a sweltering summer day in 1958. Charles, now 18, stood with a group of protesters outside City Hall. They were demanding equal access to public facilities, parks, swimming pools, libraries. Charles held a sign that read, "Separate is not equal." A police officer approached, his face twisted with disgust. "Clear out, boy," he growled, jabbing a finger at Charles's chest. "You people don't belong here." Charles felt a familiar surge of anger and fear. But he remembered the words of Dr. King, preaching nonviolence and dignity in the face of hatred. He took a deep breath and met the officer's gaze. "Sir," he said, his voice steady, "we have every right to be here. We're citizens just like you, and we're asking for nothing more than what's fair and just." The officer's face reddened, but something in Charles's calm demeanor gave him pause. After a tense moment, he stepped back, muttering under his breath as he walked away. Charles exhaled slowly, his heart racing. He had stood his ground, peacefully but firmly. It was a small victory, but an important one. As the years passed, Charles Thompson became a respected leader in the community. He organized voter registration drives, led peaceful protests, and worked tirelessly to bridge the racial divide in his city. In 1965, a pivotal moment arrived. The city council was considering plans for a new park in the neighborhood. Charles saw an opportunity not just for green space, but for healing and unity. The council chamber was packed as Charles stood to speak. He looked out at the sea of faces, black and white, young and old, and felt the weight of the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen of the council," he began, his voice strong and clear, "we have an opportunity here. An opportunity not just to build a park, but to build a community. This park can be a place where children of all races play together, where families gather, where we can begin to see each other as neighbors and friends, not as us and them." He paused, looking each council member in the eye. "I'm asking you to let us be part of this process. Let us help design this park. Let it be a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together." There was a moment of silence. Then a councilwoman spoke up. "Mr. Thompson, your words are powerful. I move that we create a community committee led by Mr. Thompson to work with our Parks Department on this project." The motion passed unanimously. Charles felt a surge of hope and pride. It was a step forward, a chance to create something meaningful. Over the next year, Charles worked closely with the Parks Department and a diverse committee of community members to design Oakwood Park. Every decision was made with intention: the layout of the paths, the placement of benches, the types of trees and flowers to be planted. The day the park opened in 1966 was one of the proudest of Charles's life. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was a joyous occasion. Children of all races played together on the new equipment, their laughter filling the air. Families spread picnic blankets on the fresh grass. The mayor, beaming, shook Charles's hand. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "you've given this city a great gift. This park is more than just trees and grass. It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we come together." Charles nodded, too overcome with emotion to speak. He looked around at the park, his park, their park, and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. It wasn't the end of their struggles, but it was a beautiful beginning. From that day forward, Oakwood Park became the heart of the community. Charles organized regular meetings there, bringing people together to discuss issues and work toward solutions. The park became a safe space for dialogue, for building understanding across racial lines. Over the decades that followed, Charles Thompson remained a pillar of the community. He served on the city council for several terms, always advocating for equality and justice. He mentored young activists, sharing the lessons he had learned during the civil rights movement. In 1990, on the 25th anniversary of Oakwood Park's opening, the city honored Charles for his contributions. The mayor's voice rang out across the park. "It is my great honor to dedicate this fountain to Charles Thompson, a man who has given so much to our community. May the flowing water remind us of the constant effort needed to nurture understanding and equality." Charles, his hair now gray, stood with tears in his eyes as the plaque was unveiled. It read, "The Charles Thompson Fountain, in honor of a man who brought our community together and helped justice flow like a mighty stream." As the applause died down, a young boy tugged on Charles's sleeve. "Mr. Thompson," he said, his eyes wide, "will you tell me about the old days? About how you made this park?" Charles smiled, sitting down on a nearby bench. "Well, young man," he began, "it all started with a dream of a place where everyone could feel welcome." As the years passed, age and health issues began to slow Charles down. His doctor diagnosed him with a heart condition, urging him to take it easy. But Charles couldn't imagine staying away from his beloved park. Every morning, without fail, he would make his way to his favorite bench. He would sit there, reading his newspaper, watching the children play, and feeling a deep sense of satisfaction at how far they had come. But there were also moments of concern. Charles noticed that while the park was integrated, real interaction between races was still limited. Children played together freely, but their parents often sat in separate groups. And there were whispers of increased police patrols that seemed to target young black men unfairly. One morning, about a year before the incident with Officer Daniels, Charles had a conversation that stuck with him. A young black woman sat down next to him on the bench, a sleeping baby in her arms. She looked tired and worried. "Excuse me," she said hesitantly. "Are you Mr. Thompson? The one they named the fountain after?" Charles nodded, smiling. "That's me. And who might you be?" "I'm Shanice," she replied. I grew up hearing stories about you, about what you did for this community. But, can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear." Shanice took a deep breath. "Do you ever feel like nothing's really changed? My brother, he got stopped by the police last week, right here in the park. They said he looked suspicious. He was just playing basketball with his friends." Charles felt a familiar ache in his chest, part heartburn, part sorrow. He reached out and patted Shanice's hand. "Things have changed, Shanice," he said gently. "But not enough. Not nearly enough. The work isn't finished. It's up to your generation now to pick up where we left off, to keep pushing for real equality, real justice." Shanice nodded, tears in her eyes. "It just seems so hard sometimes." "It is hard," Charles agreed. "But it's worth it. Look around this park. It's not perfect, but it's a start. It's a place where your baby can grow up playing with children of all races. That's something, and you can make it even better. As Shanice left, Charles sat back, lost in thought. The park was his legacy, a symbol of progress. But it was also a reminder of how much work was still to be done. Charles Thompson's mind returned to the present. The confrontation with Officer Daniels was a painful reminder that the struggles of his youth were far from over. But as he looked around the park, seeing the trees he had helped plant decades ago, now tall and strong, Charles felt a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, he was older now. Yes, his health wasn't what it used to be. But his spirit, his commitment to justice and equality, was as strong as ever. He made a silent promise to himself. He would turn this incident into an opportunity. He would work with Chief Mitchell to improve police-community relations. He would share his stories with a new generation, inspiring them to continue the fight for true equality. Oakwood Park had been born out of a dream of unity and understanding. It had weathered storms of prejudice and indifference. And now Charles Thompson decided it would once again become a catalyst for change. Charles smiled. There was still hope. There was still work to be done. And he, Charles Thompson, was not done yet. The confrontation in Oakwood Park sent ripples through the community, stirring up emotions and memories that many had thought long buried. For Charles Thompson, it was a stark reminder that the work he had dedicated his life to was far from finished. As he sat on his familiar bench in the days following the incident, he found himself reflecting on the past and contemplating the future with renewed vigor. The park, once a symbol of progress and unity, now seemed to Mr. Thompson like a microcosm of the larger societal issues they still faced. The very ground beneath his feet, which he had helped shape decades ago, now bore witness to the persistent specter of racial profiling and discrimination. But Charles Thompson was not a man to despair. Instead, he saw an opportunity, a chance to reignite the flame of change and pass the torch to a new generation. One crisp morning, about a week after the incident with Officer Daniels, Mr. Thompson arrived at the park to find Chief Raymond Mitchell waiting for him. The chief's face was etched with concern and determination. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," Chief Mitchell greeted him, rising from the bench. "I hope you're feeling better after." "Well, you know." Charles nodded, settling onto the bench beside the chief. "I'm fine, Raymond. It takes more than one misguided young officer to keep me down, but I am concerned about what this means for our community." Chief Mitchell sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly under the weight of his responsibility. "You're right to be concerned. The incident has sparked quite a reaction. There have been protests outside the police station, demands for Officer Daniels to be fired, calls for a complete overhaul of our training procedures." Mr. Thompson listened intently, his weathered hands clasped in his lap. "And how are you handling it all?" "As best I can," the chief replied. "Officer Daniels has been suspended pending a full investigation. We're reviewing our training protocols, especially regarding community engagement and racial sensitivity. But Mr. Thompson, I need your help." Charles raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Oh, and what can an old man like me do to help the chief of police?" Chief Mitchell turned to face him fully, his expression earnest. "I want you to speak to our officers. All of them. Share your experiences, your perspective. Help them understand the impact their actions can have, both positive and negative. They need to hear from someone who's lived through the changes in our community, someone who can bridge the gap between generations." Mr. Thompson sat back, considering the proposal. It was a significant ask, one that would require him to revisit painful memories and confront ongoing injustices. But isn't this what he had always done? Pushing for change, even when it was difficult. "All right, Raymond," he said finally. "I'll do it, but on one condition." "Name it," the chief replied without hesitation. "I want to bring some young people with me, the future leaders of our community. They need to be part of this conversation, too." Chief Mitchell nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I think that's an excellent idea, Mr. Thompson. In fact, I have a few suggestions for who we might invite." Over the next few weeks, Charles Thompson threw himself into preparation with an energy that belied his years. He reached out to community leaders, activists, and educators, assembling a diverse group of young people who were passionate about creating change. Among them was Shanice, the young mother he had spoken to in the park months earlier. Her brother, Marcus, whose encounter with the police had sparked their conversation, also joined the group. There was Jamal, a high school student and budding activist, Maria, a college student studying criminal justice, and Tyler, a young white man who had grown up in the neighborhood and wanted to be part of the solution. Mr. Thompson met with them regularly, sometimes in the community center, sometimes right there in Oakwood Park. He shared stories from his past, the triumphs and the setbacks, the moments of hope and the times of despair. But more importantly, he listened to their experiences, their frustrations, and their dreams for the future. He said to them during one of their meetings, when we were fighting for civil rights back in my day, we thought we were building a better world for you. And in many ways, we did. But we didn't finish the job. Now it's up to you to carry that torch forward. Shanice, bouncing her now toddler on her knee, spoke up. But Mr. Thompson, how can we make a difference when it feels like the system is stacked against us? When people like Officer Daniels can just harass us without consequences? Charles leaned forward, his eyes bright with the fire that had driven him all these years. By doing exactly what we're doing now, by speaking up, by educating, by refusing to accept the status quo. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. I've seen it. I've been part of it. And now, you will be too. As the day of the presentation to the police force approached, tension in the community continued to simmer. The suspension of Officer Daniels had sparked heated debates on social media and in community forums. Some defended the officer, arguing that he was just doing his job. Others called for more severe consequences, seeing the incident as symptomatic of deeper, systemic issues. Mr. Thompson watched it all unfold with a mixture of concern and hope. The night before the presentation, he sat in his living room, surrounded by old photographs and newspaper clippings. His fingers traced the edges of a black and white photo showing him as a young man, standing proudly in front of the newly opened Oakwood Park. "We've come so far," he murmured to himself. "But there's still so far to go." The next morning dawned bright and clear. Mr. Thompson dressed carefully in a crisp shirt and his best suit, the one he had worn to so many community meetings and city council sessions over the years. As he fastened his tie, he caught sight of himself in the mirror. The face that looked back at him was lined with age, but the eyes still sparkled with determination. He arrived at the police station to find his young team already waiting. They looked nervous but excited, each clutching notes and rehearsing their parts under their breath. Chief Mitchell greeted them warmly, ushering them into a large conference room. The room was packed with officers of all ranks. Some looked curious, others skeptical, a few even seemed resentful. Mr. Thompson took a deep breath, stepping up to the podium. The room fell silent. "Good morning," he began, his voice strong and clear. "My name is Charles Thompson. Some of you may know me as the man the fountain in Oakwood Park is named after. Others may know me as the old man who was recently harassed by one of your colleagues for simply existing in that same park." A ripple of discomfort went through the room. Mr. Thompson pressed on. "But I'm not here to point fingers or assign blame. I'm here to share a story. My story, our community story. And I brought some young people with me to share their stories too. Because you see, what happened to me in the park isn't just about one incident or one officer. It's about a history, a pattern, a system that needs to change." Over the next 2 hours, Mr. Thompson and his team painted a vivid picture of life in their community. They shared personal experiences of racial profiling, of feeling unsafe in their own neighborhoods, of the fear and frustration that came with constantly being viewed as suspects rather than citizens. But they also spoke of hope, of their vision for a future where police and community worked together in true partnership, where trust was built on mutual respect and understanding. Marcus, Shanice's brother, spoke about his experience being stopped in the park. "I was just playing ball with my friends," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "But the way those officers looked at me, the way they spoke to me, it made me feel like a criminal in my own neighborhood. Is that really how you want us to feel?" Maria, the criminal justice student, presented statistics on racial disparities in policing. "These numbers tell a story," she explained. "A story of systemic bias that goes beyond any one officer or incident. We need to acknowledge this reality if we're going to change it." Throughout it all, Mr. Thompson watched the faces of the officers in the room. He saw shock, discomfort, and defensiveness. But he also saw a dawning understanding, empathy, and in some cases, shame. As the presentation drew to a close, Mr. Thompson stepped back up to the podium. "I know this hasn't been easy to hear," he said softly. "Believe me, it hasn't been easy to say. But this conversation, difficult as it is the first step towards real change." He paused, looking out over the sea of blue uniforms. "I remember when Oakwood Park was just a dream, when the idea of black and white children playing together seemed impossible. But we made it happen. We can make this happen too. A police force that truly serves and protects all members of our community, regardless of the color of their skin." The room was silent for a moment after Mr. Thompson finished speaking. Then slowly one officer stood up. It was a young woman, her face etched with emotion. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice wavering slightly, I want to thank you, all of you, for sharing your stories, for trusting us with your experiences. I became a police officer because I wanted to help people, to make a difference. But I realize now that I can't do that without truly understanding the community I serve. So, thank you for helping me see that." Her words seemed to break a dam. Suddenly, officers were standing up all around the room, asking questions, sharing their own perspectives, engaging in the kind of open dialogue that Mr. Thompson had dreamed of for so long. As the formal presentation ended and the room buzzed with conversation, Chief Mitchell made his way to Mr. Thompson's side. "Charles," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I can't thank you enough. This is exactly what we needed." Mr. Thompson smiled, patting the chief's arm. "It's a start, Raymond. Just a start, but a good one." The impact of the presentation rippled out far beyond the walls of the police station. In the weeks that followed, Chief Mitchell implemented a series of reforms, including enhanced community engagement programs and more rigorous training on racial bias and de-escalation techniques. Officer Daniels, after a thorough investigation and disciplinary process, was required to undergo extensive retraining and community service. To everyone's surprise, he requested to meet with Mr. Thompson personally to apologize. The meeting took place in Oakwood Park at Mr. Thompson's favorite bench. Officer Daniels arrived in civilian clothes, looking nervous and ashamed. "Mr. Thompson," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, I'm so sorry. What I did was inexcusable. I let my biases and assumptions cloud my judgment, and I caused you harm. I violated the very oath I took to protect and serve." Charles listened quietly, his eyes never leaving the young officer's face. "Thank you for your apology, Officer Daniels," he said finally. "I accept it, but I hope you understand that this isn't just about me. It's about every person of color who has ever felt afraid or unwelcome in their own community because of the actions of law enforcement." Daniels nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I understand, sir, and I want you to know that I'm committed to doing better, to being better. Your presentation opened my eyes. I've requested to be part of the new community outreach program. I want to rebuild trust, to make amends." Mr. Thompson smiled, a glimmer of hope warming his heart. "That's a good start, son. A very good start." As summer turned to fall, Oakwood Park once again became a hub of community activity. But now, alongside the usual joggers and families, one could often spot police officers chatting with residents, playing basketball with local kids, or simply walking the beat with a new awareness of their role in the community. Mr. Thompson's young team had taken on leadership roles in various community initiatives. Shanice was organizing workshops on knowing your rights during police encounters. Marcus had started a mentoring program for at-risk youth. Maria was interning with the police department, working on policy reform. One crisp autumn morning, Mr. Thompson sat on his usual bench, sipping his coffee and watching the world go by. Chief Mitchell joined him, as he often did these days. "You know, Charles," the chief said, gesturing at the diverse group of people enjoying the park, "I think we're finally starting to see real change. It's not perfect, not by a long shot, but it's progress." Mr. Thompson nodded, a contented smile on his face. "It is, Raymond, and you know what? It reminds me of something my father used to say. He'd tell me, 'Charles, change is like planting a tree. The best time to do it was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. He paused, his gaze drifting to the Thompson Fountain, where a group of children, black, white, and brown, were laughing and splashing in the water. We planted some seeds 20 years ago, Raymond, and now we're planting some more. We may not live to see them grow into mighty oaks, but that's okay. The important thing is that we keep planting, keep nurturing, keep believing in the possibility of a better future. Chief Mitchell nodded, his eyes also on the playing children. Wise words, Mr. Thompson. Wise words indeed. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over Oakwood Park, Charles Thompson felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. The park that had been the site of so much joy and pain, progress and setbacks, was once again a symbol of hope. He knew the work was far from over. There would be more challenges, more setbacks, more moments of frustration and despair. But there would also be more triumphs, more moments of connection and understanding, more steps forward on the long road to true equality and justice. And as he watched the next generation, the Shanices and Marcuses and Marias of the world, take up the mantle of change, Charles Thompson felt confident that the dream he had helped nurture all those years ago was in good hands. The gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze seemed to whisper a promise of better days to come. And in the heart of Oakwood Park, surrounded by the community he had spent a lifetime serving, Charles Thompson smiled, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. For he knew now, more than ever, that change was possible, that hope was renewable, and that the power to shape a better world lay not just in the hands of the few, but in the collective will of a community united in purpose and determined to make a difference. As the morning wore on, Mr. Thompson found himself surrounded by a growing group of parkgoers. Word had spread about his role in recent events, and people were drawn to him, eager to share their thoughts and hear his wisdom. A young couple with a toddler approached, the mother smiling shyly. "Mr. Thompson, we just wanted to thank you for everything you've done for our community. We're new to the neighborhood, and hearing about your history, your commitment, well, it makes us proud to be here." Charles smiled warmly, reaching out to shake their hands. "Welcome to the neighborhood. You know, it's people like you, new families putting down roots, bringing fresh energy and ideas that keep our community vibrant." As the couple moved on, a group of teenagers on skateboards rolled up. One of them, a lanky boy with bright blue hair, spoke up. "Yo, Mr. T, we heard about how you stood up to that cop. That was badass, man." Mr. Thompson chuckled, shaking his head. Now, let's not get carried away. Standing up for what's right isn't about being badass. It's about having the courage to speak truth to power, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult." The teenagers listened, nodding thoughtfully. "So, what can we do?" a girl with braids asked. "To make things better, well," Mr. Thompson said, leaning forward, "you could start by getting involved. Come to community meetings. Volunteer. Most importantly, educate yourselves about the issues facing our neighborhood, our city, our country. Knowledge is power, and you young people have more access to information than any generation before you. Use it wisely." As the day wore on, more and more people stopped by Mr. Thompson's bench. Some came to thank him, others to seek advice, and still others simply to sit in the presence of a man who had become a living legend in their community. Late in the afternoon, as the sun began to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Chief Mitchell returned to the park. He was accompanied by Mayor Evelyn Rodriguez, the dynamic woman in her early 40s who had been elected on a platform of community renewal and social justice. "Mr. Thompson," the mayor said, extending her hand, "it's an honor to finally meet you in person. Your impact on our city has been, well, nothing short of extraordinary." Charles shook her hand firmly, a twinkle in his eye. "Thank you, Mayor Rodriguez. But I'm just one person. The real impact comes from all of us working together." The mayor nodded, her expression serious. "And that's exactly why I'm here, Mr. Thompson. We've seen the positive changes that have come from your efforts with the police department. Now, I'd like to expand on that. I want to create a citywide initiative for community engagement and racial equity, and I'd like you to be a key advisor." Mr. Thompson raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That's quite an undertaking, Mayor. What did you have in mind?" Mayor Rodriguez sat down on the bench beside him, her enthusiasm palpable. We're calling it the Bridge Builders Program. The idea is to create forums for dialogue between different community groups, implement cultural sensitivity training across all city departments, and establish a youth mentorship program. We want to address systemic issues at every level, from education to housing to economic opportunity. Charles listened intently, nodding slowly. It's ambitious, he said finally, but necessary and long overdue. Exactly, the mayor agreed. And that's why we need your experience, your wisdom. You've seen what works and what doesn't. You understand the nuances of our community in a way that few others do. Mr. Thompson was quiet for a moment, his gaze drifting across the park. He saw families of all backgrounds enjoying the late afternoon sun, children playing together without a care for their differences. It was the vision he had fought for all those years ago, slowly but surely becoming reality. All right, he said at last. I'm in, but on one condition. Name it. Mayor Rodriguez replied without hesitation. I want my young team involved too. Shanice, Marcus, Maria, and the others. They're the future of this community. They need to be at the table, learning how to lead these initiatives for the long haul. The mayor's face broke into a wide smile. Mr. Thompson, I wouldn't have it any other way. In fact, I was hoping you'd say that. We need to bridge the generational gap as well, bring fresh perspectives to the table. As they continued to discuss the details of the program, a small crowd began to gather around them. Word had spread quickly that the mayor was in the park, and people were curious about what was happening. Seeing the growing crowd, Mayor Rodriguez stood up. Why don't we take this opportunity to hear from the community directly, she suggested. After all, that's what the Bridge Builders Program is all about. Mr. Thompson nodded approvingly. An excellent idea, Mayor. With that, Mayor Rodriguez addressed the gathered crowd, explaining the basics of the Bridge Builders Program and inviting people to share their thoughts and concerns. What followed was a spontaneous town hall meeting right there in Oakwood Park. People from all walks of life stepped forward to speak their minds. A teacher talked about the need for more diverse curricula in schools. A small business owner discussed the challenges of economic inequality. A young activist raised concerns about gentrification and affordable housing. Throughout it all, Mr. Thompson watched with a sense of pride and hope. This was democracy in action, the very thing he had fought for all those years ago. People coming together, making their voices heard, working towards a common goal of a better community for all. As the impromptu meeting wound down, the sun setting behind the trees, Mayor Rodriguez turned to Mr. Thompson. This is exactly what we need more of, she said. Real dialogue, real engagement. Thank you for helping make this happen. Charles smiled, feeling energized despite the long day. This is just the beginning, Mayor. The real work starts now. Over the next few months, the Bridge Builders Program began to take shape. Mr. Thompson found himself busier than he had been in years, attending meetings, reviewing proposals, and offering his insights at every turn. But he wasn't alone in his efforts. True to his word, he had insisted on involving his young team in every aspect of the program. Shanice took charge of the Youth Mentorship Initiative, drawing on her experiences as a young mother to create a program that truly addressed the needs of at-risk youth. Marcus, with his firsthand experience of racial profiling, became a key voice in developing new policing guidelines. Maria's academic background proved invaluable in crafting policy recommendations. One crisp autumn morning, Mr. Thompson sat in on a training session for city employees. The room was packed with people from various departments: sanitation workers, parks and recreation staff, administrators from City Hall. At the front of the room stood Tyler, the young white man who had been part of Mr. Thompson's original team. All right, everyone, Tyler began, his voice clear and confident. Today we're going to be talking about implicit bias. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, I don't have any biases. I treat everyone the same. But the truth is, we all have biases. The key is learning to recognize them and prevent them from influencing our actions. As Tyler led the group through a series of exercises and discussions, Mr. Thompson felt a swell of pride. Here was a young man who had grown up in a predominantly white neighborhood, now leading a diverse group of city employees in confronting difficult truths about race and prejudice. It was a sign of real progress. After the session, Tyler approached Mr. Thompson, a look of nervous excitement on his face. "How did I do, Mr. Thompson? Was it okay?" Charles clasped the young man's shoulder warmly. "You did more than okay, son. You did excellent. You're making a real difference." Tyler beamed at the praise. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mr. Thompson. Everything you've taught us, everything you've shown us, it's changed my whole perspective on the world." As they walked out of the building together, Mr. Thompson reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. From that tense confrontation in the park to this moment of shared purpose and understanding, it was a testament to the power of dialogue, of listening, of being willing to change. The weeks turned into months, and the Bridge Builders program continued to grow and evolve. There were challenges, of course. Change never comes easy, and there were those who resisted, who clung to old prejudices and outdated ways of thinking. But for every setback, there were two steps forward. Mr. Thompson watched with satisfaction as community gardens sprang up in vacant lots, as new affordable housing initiatives broke ground, as schools implemented diversity and inclusion programs that went beyond mere tokenism. One day, as winter gave way to spring, Mr. Thompson found himself back in Oakwood Park. The trees were budding, promising new life and growth. He sat on his familiar bench, watching a group of children playing on the new equipment that had been installed as part of the park's renovation. A figure sat down beside him, and he turned to see Shanice, her young son, now old enough to be running around with the other children. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice full of emotion, "I just wanted to thank you for everything, for believing in us, for showing us that change is possible." Charles smiled, patting her hand gently. "No need to thank me, child. You've done all the hard work. You and all the other young people who've taken up this cause. I'm just grateful I've lived long enough to see it." Shanice shook her head. "No, Mr. Thompson. You've done so much more than you realize. You've been our rock, our guiding light. Even when things got tough, even when it felt like we weren't making any progress, you never lost faith. You taught us perseverance." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the children play. Finally, Shanice spoke again. "You know, my son asked me the other day why the fountain is named after you. I told him your story, about how you fought for this park, for this community. And you know what he said?" Mr. Thompson raised an eyebrow, curious. He said, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be like Mr. Thompson. I want to make things better for everyone." Shanice's eyes glistened with tears. "That's your legacy, Mr. Thompson. Not just this park, not just the changes we're seeing now, but the inspiration you've given to the next generation and the one after that." Charles felt his own eyes growing moist. He looked out over the park, remembering the young man he had been, full of fire and determination. He thought of all the struggles, all the setbacks, all the moments of doubt. And he thought of this moment, sitting here with Shanice, seeing the fruits of their labor all around them. "You know," he said softly, "when I was young, I thought change would come like a thunderbolt. Quick, dramatic, earth-shattering. But I've learned that real, lasting change is more like this park. You plant the seeds, you nurture them, you protect them from storms. And slowly, so slowly you might not even notice at first, things begin to grow. Before you know it, you have a forest where once there was just bare earth." He turned to Shanice, his eyes bright with emotion. "You young people, you're the gardeners now. Keep planting those seeds. Keep nurturing them. The forest will come, I promise you that." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across Oakwood Park, Mr. Thompson felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. He had lived a long life, seen more changes than he could have ever imagined. There was still work to be done, still mountains to climb. But he knew now, with absolute certainty, that the future was in good hands. The Bridge Builders program continued to flourish, expanding beyond the city limits and inspiring similar initiatives in neighboring communities. Mr. Thompson, though he had initially planned to serve only as an advisor, found himself drawn more and more into the day-to-day operations. His experience and wisdom proved invaluable as the program navigated the complex waters of social change. One sunny afternoon, almost a year after the program's inception, Mr. Thompson received a surprise visit at his home. It was Officer Daniels, the young policeman whose actions had set this whole chain of events in motion. "Mr. Thompson," Daniels said, standing awkwardly on the porch, "I hope I'm not intruding. I wanted to talk to you, if that's all right." Charles studied the young man for a moment, then nodded, gesturing for him to come inside. They sat in the living room, surrounded by photos and mementos from Mr. Thompson's long life of activism. "What's on your mind, son?" Charles asked gently. Daniels took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Mr. Thompson, about what happened that day in the park, about everything that's happened since. I've been through the sensitivity training, I've been part of the community outreach programs, and I've realized how much damage I could have done, how much damage people like me have done over the years." He paused, his eyes glistening. "I wanted you to know that I'm leaving the force." Mr. Thompson raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Oh, may I ask why?" "I've decided to go back to school," Daniels explained. "I want to become a social worker. I think I could do more good that way. Help people instead of making them feel afraid and unwelcome in their own community." Charles leaned back in his chair, a small smile playing on his lips. "That's a big change, Officer Daniels. Are you sure about this?" Daniels nodded firmly. "I am. And it's just Daniels now. Or Michael, if you prefer. I'm not an officer anymore." "Well then, Michael," Mr. Thompson said, leaning forward to clasp the young man's shoulder, "I think you've made a wise decision. It takes courage to admit when you've been wrong, and even more courage to completely change your path in life. I'm proud of you, son." Daniel's eyes widened in surprise. "You're proud of me? After what I did?" Charles nodded. "What you did was wrong, yes. But what you're doing now, the way you're taking responsibility and try to make amends, that's something to be proud of. That's the kind of change we need to see more of in this world." As Daniels left that day, Mr. Thompson felt a renewed sense of hope. If someone like Michael Daniels could change so dramatically, could recognize his biases and actively work to overcome them, then truly anything was possible. The years continued to pass, and Oakwood Park remained at the heart of the community's transformation. The Bridge Builders program expanded, evolving into a comprehensive initiative that touched every aspect of city life. Mr. Thompson, though he had long since passed the reins of day-to-day operations to younger hands, remained a respected advisor and elder statesman of the movement. On a warm summer day, 5 years after that fateful confrontation in the park, a grand celebration was held. The city had decided to rededicate Oakwood Park, not just to Mr. Thompson, but to the spirit of community and progress that he had championed for so long. As Mr. Thompson stood at the podium, looking out over the sea of faces, young and old, of every race and background, he felt a sense of completion. The park that had once been a battleground was now truly a place of unity and hope. "My friends," he began, his voice strong despite his advanced years, "when I first helped design this park, I had a dream of a place where all children could play together, where families could gather without fear or prejudice, where our community could come together as one. Today, I stand before you and say that dream has become a reality." He paused, his eyes misting slightly. "But our work is not done. It will never be done. Each generation must take up the mantle, must fight for justice and equality, must work to build bridges instead of walls. This park, this program we've built together, they're not the end of our journey. They're just the beginning." As applause echoed through the park, Mr. Thompson looked to the side of the stage, where Shanice, Marcus, Maria, and the other young leaders stood. They were no longer young. Really, they had grown into confident, capable adults, ready to lead the community into the future. And there, in the front row, sat Michael Daniels, now a respected social worker, nodding along with Mr. Thompson's words. Beside him was Chief Mitchell, gray-haired but still sharp-eyed, a living testament to how institutions could change for the better. As Mr. Thompson concluded his speech, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the life he had lived, for the changes he had seen, for the community that had come together in ways he had once only dreamed of. The celebration continued long into the evening, with music and laughter filling the air. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over Oakwood Park, Mr. Thompson found a quiet moment to himself. He stood by the fountain that bore his name, listening to the gentle splash of water. A small hand tugged at his sleeve, and he looked down to see Shanice's son, now a bright-eyed boy of 10. "Mr. Thompson," the child said earnestly, "when I grow up, I want to be just like you." Charles chuckled softly, ruffling the boy's hair. "No, son," he said gently. "When you grow up, I want you to be even better. I want you to take everything we've built here and make it stronger, make it reach even further. Can you do that for me?" The boy nodded solemnly, his young face full of determination. "I promise, Mr. Thompson. I promise." As the child ran off to join his friends, Mr. Thompson turned back to the fountain, a contented smile on his face. He had planted seeds, nurtured them through storms and droughts, and now he was seeing the forest grow. It was more beautiful than he had ever imagined. And as the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Charles Thompson knew that his legacy was secure. Not in a fountain or a park that bore his name, but in the hearts and minds of a community that had learned to come together, to fight for justice, to build bridges across the divides that had once seemed insurmountable. The work would go on, the dream would continue to unfold, and Oakwood Park would stand as a testament to what could be achieved when people dared to hope, dared to work together, dared to believe in the possibility of a better world. And in that moment, surrounded by the fruits of a lifetime of labor, Charles Thompson felt truly at peace. Charles's quiet strength and the unexpected intervention of a mystery figure didn't just change his life, but sent ripples throughout the entire community. Their actions uncovered deep truths about justice, accountability, and respect, reminding everyone that standing up for what's right can shift the course of an entire system. If Charles's story touched you, be sure to subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories. And before you go, we'd love to hear from you. How do you think you would have handled the situation if you were in Charles's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below.